What does Five Nights at Freddy's Help Wanted 2 hide in the sister location and Princess Quest 4 minigames? Help Wanted 2 takes you through tons of FNAF history in the form of unique minigames and puzzles. Today we'll be taking a trip to the infamous sister location in the 6th and final set of minigames. In these games you'll crawl through the dark to avoid an encroaching Ballora, fix a series of breakers while stuck in a room with Funtime Freddy, and then cap things off with a classic FNAF style face-off against the sister location cast. In this video we'll be taking a closer look at these levels in search of things we can't typically see. Like, did you know there's a ton of hidden developer text in the Office minigames? We'll also be taking a look behind the scenes at Princess Quest 4 and the update for Secret of the Mimic. So I hope you enjoyed today's behind the scenes look of Help Wanted 2. As always, I like to do a quick recap of what we'll be covering to make sure we're all caught up on the game's events. To make things easier, I'll just recap each section as we get to it, since we're covering several minigames. Booting up the first sister location minigame, Ballora Gallery, there's a fair bit of checkered flowing between you and the exit. The objective here is to crawl through the darkness and reach the exit, avoiding Ballora as she dances by. Mini-arenas will appear occasionally, but giving them a good toss usually does the trick. Although, the same can't be said for BOTW, who waits for you in the darkness, jump scaring you if you stray too far from your path. You have 5 minutes to reach the other side, and moving with Ballora present means death. So don't do that. So if we switch the lights on and begin looking around, you'll see that this map looks very different from what you might expect. The entities we'll interact with here are already loaded in before the minigame even begins, so a couple of mini-arenas are currently waiting just out of sight. They'll disappear before the timer starts, but for the time being, they're chilling in the middle of the platform, frozen in their dancing animation. There are multiple copies of BOTW here as well, one on both sides of the player and one behind. These guys are here in case the player tries to stray from their path, and they actually never leave your vicinity. We'll be seeing more of these enemies in just a second, but first I should probably address Ballora, the Balloras. There are 2 versions of this enemy loaded in currently, the one on stage who disappears as we start walking, and this version who's actively dancing it up out of bounds. This version isn't unloaded like the other because this Ballora is the copy that dances by when we're making our swift escape. She just endlessly loops her animation here until she's called elsewhere in the map. You'd think it'd be easy to spot these characters by simply turning and moving in their direction, but that's where this game's unique movement mechanic comes to the rescue. I felt that the floor we're sliding across seemed a bit smaller than what I imagined it would be, since it didn't even connect to the other side of the level. As soon as I started moving, all of these oddities made a lot more sense. Ballora's stage started sliding away, but the player never actually ended up moving. It turns out that we remain completely still throughout this entire minigame, and the flooring beneath your feet moves instead. The same goes for the exit we're desperately trying to reach. Instead of making our way closer to it, the exit slowly inches closer to our platform whenever the player moves in its direction. Eventually, it'll arrive on top of our little platform and we can head inside. Speaking of which, we're not limited to moving forwards and backwards. We can actually move in a full range of motion. The floor textures will move in any direction we move in, but that doesn't mean we're home free. The BOTW trio moves in relation to the player's movements, and so we can watch from up above as they slide closer and further away depending on which direction we're moving. Now let's direct our attention to the star of the show. Ballora seems to just appear from the shadows during our trek to the finish line, but where is she coming from? After getting far enough into the level, Ballora vanishes from an idle location out of bounds and thrusts herself into the spotlight. She appears far enough out of your sight that you can't see this taking place, but after she warps, she begins spinning into your area. If you're completely still, she'll move on without incident and vanish, but she's not gone completely. Looking closer, you can see the dust cloud from her foot still present on the map, but she's been temporarily hidden until she's triggered to return. Something I found a bit strange is that after warping to the exit on the other side, I tried moving only to realize that the floor was no longer sliding like before. The exit was completely static as well, as the minigame's logic was broken by me moving the player in a way the devs weren't anticipating. With that said, we can take a quick look at Ballora's jump scare before moving on to the next minigame. And yes, it's just as terrifying in bullet time. Now let's check out the following minigame, Breaker Room. Once here, you'll be set up behind a panel with multiple levers and meters, switching the breakers on in the right order to fill the gauges. While managing this job, Funtime Freddy will leave his platform and try his best to stop you, forcing you to use the megaphone in order to stop him. This back and forth lasts until all the gauges are full, and once complete, the knight will be beaten. This minigame has a hard mode variant, where in it, Yendo takes Funtime Freddy's place. The minigame plays out mostly the same, the only difference being Yendo is much faster and more aggressive. Jumping back in time, I pulled the camera back to see if there's anything more to this level, but it's only this small room and nothing more. This room is full of wiring and pipes, but not all the technology here makes sense. Like for instance, this power strip that just doesn't have a cord attached to it. The room is full of these things, and I can't say a surge protector like this will do you much good. It doesn't impact the game in any way, but it's still funny enough to mention. So Funtime Freddy will move throughout the room as we mess with the levers, but all of his movements are obscured by the room going completely dark. With the lights on, Freddy skips the whole walking thing and just teleports around instead. The poses he changes to aren't completely consistent though, at least not all of him. Funtime Freddy's head is programmed to face the player at all times, and if we move it into a different position before Freddy moves, it will break his posing a bit. Because of this, we've basically splinter celled him, breaking his neck so his head is fully backwards and facing the other side of the room. It's not only his head either. Freddy's eyes are also programmed the same way, but unlike his head, they don't change position when Freddy moves. They'll follow the camera actively, including rolling back into his own noodle. It's actually really creepy, knowing there's nowhere we can go where his eyes won't be able to follow. During this minigame, there are several places Freddy can warp to as he approaches our workstation. There's only one position he can enter where we aren't able to see him, but where does he go? During this time, Funtime Freddy is moved out of bounds, where we'd never be able to find him. He's floating just beyond the wall, but still follows a player's position with his head like a total weirdo. As you probably come to expect, he'll warp back inside when the time comes, but he kinda messed himself up in the process. If we let him get close enough, he'll approach the player, triggering a jump scare if we don't ward him off. In this sequence, his head follows the camera in real time instead of snapping between poses. Now, there isn't much else to look at in the hard mode night that we didn't already see, but more than anything, I want to highlight how funny Yendo looks with the lights on. His menacing appearance seems oddly chipper when lit up, and his usually terrifying silhouette instead looks like an endoskeleton covered in metal spaghetti. When he warped over to the pipes on our left, his happy expression changed to what I can only describe as maximum sus. I'm not completely sure what has him so suspicious, but whatever it is we're doing, he's definitely onto us. When Yendo approaches the player's station, his walk cycle is surprisingly funny. During this time, I also managed to break his head too. Moving the camera behind him results in this flipping motion, and so I figured if we can't destroy him, giving him whiplash was the next best option. And as we let him reach us, we can take a look at his jump scare and bullet time. That's it for the breaker room though, so now let's dive into office private room. Fans of Sister Location will definitely recognize this minigame since it's heavily based on the fake endings private room. Once the game begins, Enter becomes active and a classic FNAF style night of survival follows suit. You'll have to check the cameras frequently to find your slippery enemy, closing the doors whenever they arrive at your office to avoid certain doom. There's more to this night than closing doors and watching cameras though. Power is in limited supply, and running out is bad news. So managing your power is just as important as avoiding Entered. At 6 AM, the night comes to an end, and you can move on to night 2. So we're starting this level, I moved the camera out of bounds for a better look at this map's construction. In doing so, I found this handsome fellow hanging out just beyond the back wall of the office. It's a default textured model of what I assume to be a human, and they're currently T-posing on a small circular platform. This knockoff member of the Fighting Polygon team has 2 rectangular objects by their side as well. If we look closer at the text, you'll see that these are actually measuring sticks, both indicating 6 feet. This asset was most likely used to help the devs scale the environment accurately during development. By using this tool, it's a lot easier to construct the map with consistent proportions and keep things from going wonky in the process. This is only a likely scenario though, since hey, I didn't make the game. Now, there's something else the developers left behind that I'm positive you've noticed by now. The totally massive pieces of text floating around the level. By zooming way out, you'll see that the rest of this level is not connected to the office as you'd first expect. Each of the rooms we view through our camera system are instead mapped out using these text labels, and the rooms themselves are held elsewhere. Beneath this section of the level, it says white box area, so it's possible that all this text wasn't only added here after the fact, but used as a sort of guide when constructing obstructing the rest of the map during the whiteboxing phase to block it out. It could also be referring to this much larger platform where the rest of this level is located. Completely separate from the office we play in, there's a platform with a duplicate text layout. In this case, the levels mentioned in the dev text are actually present, and what you're looking at here are the rooms seen through our cameras. This is confirmed further by the devs writing, use this space for camera rooms. So that one's not really up for debate. However, there are two sets of developer texts here in this level that I can't quite figure out. First, there's this one that reads Hidden Room. It's hovering above a platform occupied by a few enemies. But I don't know if this text is referring to this area or something else. From what I can tell, there isn't another room that this could be referencing, but if you think you know, let me know in the comments. The other bit of text that puzzles me is this one found in front of the player's office. It reads, Characters with unique requirements, Bonnet. In the original game that this level is based on, Bonnet can appear during the custom night if you have her switched on. To my knowledge though, Bonnet doesn't make an appearance in this minigame, only her blue counterpart Bonbon. I wasn't sure if Bonnet made an appearance in an Easter egg or something, but I never encountered her or found her when searching around the map, so I can only assume this isn't the case. This could also reference a scrapped interaction we were meant to have with Bonnet in this level, and it got axed at some point during development. Either way, the devs left some pretty cool stuff behind for us to stumble across. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the level is broken up into multiple parts instead of being one singular structure. Every single room we view through the cameras is stored in another location, entirely disconnected from your office. By heading through these areas, we can get a much better look at them, though you'll quickly find that they're not all in one piece. Because we only view them through the perspective of a static camera, pun intended, they don't make a whole lot of logical sense. The biggest leap of logic is the complete lack of walls in most of these rooms. However, the camera either doesn't see these spots, or visual tricks are used to hide the fact that they're mostly incomplete. Fortunately, with all this confusion, the devs made sure we knew this was a vent. It's so important, in fact, that they reminded us twice. It wouldn't be a FNAF game without nightmarish mechanical beings, and so I found Ennard hanging out in the very back of the level. It's actually kind of funny how small they are compared to the rest of the level, but still as terrifying as ever. This enemy doesn't actually walk through the level though, but instead, when the cameras flicker, they'll warp to their next position. This teleporting motion isn't the only way enemies can get around though. As you can see, when Ennard reached our office, they warped across the void and into our small section of this map on the other side. As this happens, they'll appear just out of our sight, turning the corner with a fully fleshed out walking animation as opposed to teleporting like before. Ennard strutted over to our door, so I made it a little harder by closing the door in their face. They kept walking until they were practically touching our office door, freezing in this idle pose for a bit before unloading for the time being. At this point, I want to take another look at Ennard's jump scare sequence, but when looking beneath this level, I found something just a bit strange. In the two-faced sphere, usually reserved for jump scares, I found, Glamrock Freddy? He was frozen in one frame of his jump scare, but why is Freddy here at all? This animatronic doesn't make an appearance during this minigame whatsoever, so it's a bit strange that this jump scare model is found here. If Ennard reaches the player though, this model instantly switches over to the correct animatronic while the sequence plays out. Heading into the first hard mode night, Office Puppet Master will occupy the same location as before. Only the enemies inside have changed. We must now defend our office from Ballora, Bidybap, and an army of mini-arenas. Using the cameras, you'll have to keep track of these threats, issuing a controlled shock whenever these mischievous little critters arrive to cause a ruckus. The minis can also pop into your office and block your buttons, meaning you won't be able to close the doors needed for your survival. So first and foremost, let's head back out to the void space behind the scenes. Beneath the hidden room text I mentioned earlier, we can find a platform with a bunch of character models on it. In the very back corner, there's a collection of mini arenas T-posing in what I can only describe as their attack formation. They're lined up in a few rows, with the leader of the pack standing behind the rest. The 5 up front are pretty small, but the one in the back is much larger in comparison. These characters serve different purposes inside this level too. After starting the minigame, I waited until I found a mini arena somewhere on the security cameras, and then headed back out to that platform to see if anything changed. When I got there, one of our wooden friends here was obviously missing, and it was none other than the big boss in the back. We can move our camera through the map to find them occupying one of these rooms. What's interesting to me is that after returning to this platform a bit later on, they were moved in front of the others instead of behind them. As for the smaller mini arenas, they function mostly the same as the big one. When they arrive in your office to block your buttons, the minis, seen outside the map on top of this platform, will be moved into the office. By moving the camera back back out here, you can see that one of these creatures has gone missing. Of course, Ballora is here as well, and like Ennard, we can find her throughout the various locations seen on the cameras. She functions almost identically as well, warping between locations as she heads for our office and appearing beyond our doors. Ballora has a particular flair though, and instead of stumbling to the player, she dances there instead. Unlike Ennard though, Ballora doesn't simply vanish after reaching a closed door. Instead, she starts spinning away from our office and back into the other parts of the map. After leaving the player's sight, she then stops for a bit once she's exited the map completely, unloading a little bit after. Now as for Bidybab, this character functions a bit differently than the others. At the start of the game, we can't actually find them anywhere within this map, and only after the night plays out for a bit will they show up. If you don't react quickly enough with a good old zap, Bidybab will enter the vents and make a sprint for your office. Just like the other animatronics, if we block the door before they get inside, they'll vanish as soon as they reach the door. There's not much else to see here though, so let's keep things moving forward and check out the next level, Office Funtime Gang. On this night, the Funtime animatronics will take the stage and completely turn things on their head. First, Chica's cupcake is now hanging out on her desk and can be moved to keep her from reaching your office. If she does, you'll have to give it to her to avoid a jump scare. But this means a second visit from the chicken is imminent. Funtime Foxy is here too, and they function like the classic Foxy we know from FNAF 1. Funtime Freddy and Bonbon are present as well, and Bonbon can attack from all three entrances to her office. So we're starting this night, I move the camera to the main hallway to find Chica hanging out with an empty plate and staring at the non-existent camera. Something else you can see here is the impromptu Pirate's Cove used for Funtime Foxy. Speaking of which, let's take a closer look at this animatronic and how they function. As I said before, Funtime Foxy functions pretty much the same as the original in FNAF 1. As the night moves forward, this character slowly inches their way out through the curtains and into the hallway, staring up at the camera because it wouldn't be as creepy if they didn't. There's a period where this animatronic is completely missing though, and during this time they vanish for just a moment, reappearing in one of the two hallways on either side of the player's office. For the moment, they're actually frozen in one frame of the running animation, hidden behind the wall of whichever hallway they've chosen to run through. Once the animation starts, Foxy actually sprints through the wall, running past the cameras and disappearing yet again. After vanishing, Foxy appears outside the player's line of sight in the hallway and beelines for the door. If the player closes the door at this time, Funtime Foxy warps all the way across the level and back into Pirate's Cove, starting this sequence over from the beginning. Another enemy we'll face here is Funtime Freddy and his good friend Bonbon. When I found Freddy, he was hanging out in one of the level's side closets and staring up at the camera. As you might expect, his right hand is not a hand, and Bonbon isn't attached to it either. Something I found neat is how Freddy hides his right hand in the cameras. In every spot I saw him appear, he's purposely hiding his right arm, so you can't see whether Bonbon is present or not. Now when Bonbon reaches your office, you can see him pop out from around the corner and wave his arms at you. From another angle, you can see there's nothing holding him up at all, and during this time, he's just floating a few feet off the ground. The same thing applies regardless of where he's attacking from. Like for instance, the vent in the middle of your office. In this case, he's hovering upside down and glaring at us through the vent. When Bonbon attacks, he'll reel back and then throw himself at the player, flying through the vent and disappearing like the other animatronics we've observed. Now, in the final night of the office minigame, Job Interview, the entire flow of gameplay has changed. We're now playing make-believe with Circus Baby and her plush baby companions. Instead of surviving until 6 AM like the other nights, there are instead 3 challenges awaiting you here. First, Plush Baby will begin appearing on the cameras, requiring a controlled shock to chase her off. Next, 3 Plush Babies will appear around you, so you need to shine your flashlight on them to prevent them from reaching you. Finally, there's a standard game of flashlight tag, meaning you'll have to spot Plush Baby and chase her off before she can jump scare you. So starting the night over from the beginning, I move the camera out of bounds since there's something interesting hidden beneath the map that I didn't mention earlier. On all 4 nights that we play through, Circus Baby is just hanging out in the void space. She's just T-posing out here endlessly, which is strange considering she only makes an appearance on the last night. The creepiest part is that her head always faces the player, even though her idle position is so far away from the player's position. Now on the same platform where we found the mini arenas earlier, there are 2 rows of Plush Baby lined up and waiting to make their attack. It's terrifying because they also stare at the player from beyond the map's walls. Even though you're tucked away in your office, these enemies are always watching from areas you'll never see. A haunting secret you can't unlearn. From what I can tell, these characters have designated jobs that they'll serve throughout the night. This red copy of Plush Baby, for instance, is the only one who doesn't stare at the player from behind the scenes. Their aversion to eye contact is impersonal though, because this version is the only one moved when she appears in your security cameras. After being moved somewhere into the map, giving her a controlled shock results in Plush Baby returning to this platform. Only now she's been moved to the side, like the mini arena was earlier. The others are used for their respective challenges, like red light, green light, and hide and seek. As these minigames play out, the plush babies needed for them are moved into the map, but they aren't always unloaded afterwards. For some reason, the red light, green light copies will be moved back onto this platform out of bounds. Once here, they begin running off into the void, stopping in the same place, and fusing into this nightmarish, multi-faced plush baby. When Circus Baby enters our office during this night, the model that approaches our door is the same one found out of bounds on all 4 nights. I wanted to take a closer look at how she delivers our victory ice cream though. When she nears, we can take a look inside of Circus Baby's model to find a black sphere occupying the center. This arm will suddenly appear from within said sphere, reaching through it to deliver our frozen treat and retracting once we've taken it. The arm used for this sequence is moved underneath our office at this point, floating just out of sight before unloading entirely. After the night is beaten, we can see that a black barrier surrounds the player's office as the victory screen appears. That pretty much wraps up the sister location levels, and in turn, we've officially covered every minigame in Help Wanted 2. But we're not done yet. If the player manages to collect each of the memory dolls hidden within certain minigames, a fast token is obtained, which grants you access to the Princess Quest 4 arcade machine. When we boot up the game, we appear in a dark room with the cabinet in front of the player. After being granted a sword, you'll head through the doors and begin exploring this spooky dungeon full of enemies. As you move forward, you'll light torches and open chests, eventually pulling the greatest fourth wall break of all time, and appearing in the same room the player is currently playing. So after we initially start up Princess Quest, we're moved to a completely separate map from the hub we were just in. This room is occupied by nothing more than the arcade machine and a singular door, but the only way out is forward, especially since the door was a total sham. Moving the camera through the ceiling is when things get even more weird, since we'll find a video game version of the room we're already hanging out in. As a matter of fact, all the levels we'll play through in Princess Quest are placed out here in a single row, aside from the cabinet room, at least. Each of them are currently active too, with the monsters inside moving about and all their animations fully intact. These game screens are stored outside the map, and they're essentially projected onto the arcade cabinet inside the map. We don't even really need to play from inside the level either, since we're able to control a character from out of bounds and watch things play out in real time. When we're exploring during this minigame, we'll pass through doors and instantly load into the next map. When viewed from out of bounds, our character is actually warping to the adjacent room as the screen shifts on the cabinet inside. Some of the areas in this minigame are hidden in the darkness and only become accessible after the necessary torches are lit up. These Zelda-style secret platforms are actually present the entire time. You just can't see them typically. If you look at these areas from out of bounds, you can see that this trick is pulled off in a pretty simple way. A black panel is placed above them until they're supposed to appear, and when they do, the barrier is removed and the floor beneath it becomes accessible. Something else you can only see from out here is the particles used when an enemy is defeated. While we can see these from our regular perspective, what you can't see is that the pixelated explosion is a fully 3D effect. Even though this is the case, it still appears completely flat when viewing it through the machine. After reaching the end of your quest, the princess will arrive in the room with you in a meta twist nobody could see coming. While their placement in the map is locked, so they move in unison, these entities are not direct copies of each other. While in the minigame we can move around in all 4 directions, the princess in the room with you will always turn to face you. As soon as you swing your sword while near the player, a white pixelated half sphere appears in front of you, blocking your view as the map prepares to swap. So after your sight returns, you'll take the sword from the arcade machine as it appears in your hand. Moving forward, you'll realize you've now arrived in a castle thematically similar to the one in the arcade game. You'll eventually exit the castle, lighting these graves in the correct order to open a hidden room. You can now grab a secret Bonnie mask and trade it to the old man up ahead for a Glitchtrap plush. From here, you take an elevator up to a giant claw machine, giving Moon your new plush with a massive Vanny looking inside at you. Dropping the plush, Vanny picks up Glitchtrap from the machine and crushes him, fading into the distance as the credits roll. So after we've arrived inside the world of Princess Quest, we'll grab the sword from the arcade cabinet and begin our adventure. What's really cool is watching the sword appear from from thin air as we pick it up. Also, we can destroy the character we were just playing as using the sword, which is also pretty neat in bullet time. In the hallway up ahead, you'll fight enemies, warping across these holes in the floor to move forward in the minigame. Each of these pits has a black barrier that would be hard to notice during a typical playthrough. These are here to obstruct your view, since you can easily see the rest of the map out of bounds without these objects in place. After exploring the large castle area, you'll come to this sort of staircase that leads you down to the bottom floor. Down here, there's a giant pit that you, once again, can't see the bottom of. Surprisingly, this one isn't bottomless like the other, but instead it comes to what looks like a dugout hole in the ground. Falling in still wouldn't feel good, but hey, at least you aren't falling into infinity. When we step out into the courtyard ahead, we can take a look at this castle area from another angle and see just how big it is compared to the other rooms we've explored thus far. I saw something pretty interesting while I was out here though. While you're outside in the cemetery, you can see large clouds passing by in the distance, and this is done using these seemingly endless projections. There are multiple sets of these clouds at varying heights and angles, and it's really weird to look at it from this angle. When continuing forward, you'll access a hidden room using the gravestones in the middle of the path. Ain't nobody got time for puzzles, so I deleted the hidden doors instead, which surprisingly let me access the chest anyway. I was able to grab the mask without lighting a single torch, allowing me to trade it to the old man up ahead as expected. After trading for the Glitchtrap plush, we can head up the elevator. This elevator is already out of place compared to the rest of the castle, but it's even stranger from out of bounds. It's a giant cylinder with multiple sets of lights throughout. It also rises up into a gigantic claw machine. Although it looks fully modeled from the inside, it doesn't have a base beneath the basket where the toys are sitting. In front of the machine, there's a massive Vanny looking inside with her hands on the glass. She's twice as big as the machine we're currently standing in, and it's kind of intimidating just how huge this character is compared to the rest of the level. After a moment, Moon will drop down from up above and hold out his hand, waiting for the player to hand the Glitchtrap plush over. Once we've handed it over, Moon will float over to the prize bin and drop the toy down inside, doing some sick flips before flying straight up and through the ceiling. Vanny then reaches her hand down to grab her prize, but there isn't anything in her palm at first. When she begins lifting her hand, Glitchtrap will appear standing in the center right before entering the player's line of sight. This tiny rabbit looks completely terrified, staring straight up at his giant captor as she raises her hand and brings it down on his head. He stops her for just a second, but her hand closes anyway, with Glitchtrap clipping through it and quickly unloading. The deed is now done, and so Vanny backs through a huge two-faced barrier while waving at the player, unloading herself as the credits begin to roll. That pretty much wraps up Princess Quest, but we're not finished yet. After an update called Secret of the Mimic, the player can now enter the minigame Office Puppet Master and input a code to obtain this tiger plush. This allows you to view the Mimic through the hub's model viewer, and when throwing an object at them, a door will then be opened behind you. A puzzle is placed on a table, and solving it spawns a large gift shop in this open space. If we take our mask off in this area, the gift shop disappears, and a van containing MXES appears instead. After inputting the code found on the gift shop's mailbox, the entity appears from inside the van and stares you down. The doors then close, and the van quickly leaves. So if we turn back time and re-enter this puzzle room, we can zoom out to find that this area is nothing more than a flat platform. There isn't anything hidden out of bounds in this level, and this almost makes it more creepy. Until we finish the puzzle, it's just a single piece of floor, with nothing hidden behind the scenes. When looking at the table, we can take our mask off and put it back on to see the puzzle changing between its two versions, one being the van, and the other the gift shop we spawn. This transition is seamless too, and we can even see the mask appearing on the table at the same time. As soon as the puzzle is completed, we can watch as the gift shop blinks into existence in the distance. With this huge building now present, let's take a closer look at it. For those of you wondering, the building doesn't extend past what we can see from the front. There is nothing inside for us to see since there's no inside to speak of, and the building just stops on the other side. Something I found kind of strange is this window on the upper right side. For some reason, it seems to be actively raining inside of the building. There's obviously water flowing from the inside of this pane, but I can't even begin to imagine why. What's weirder is that the other windows have water on them too. At least that's what it looks like. It's not animated on this side of the building though, so I'm not sure why the other is. If we take the mask off again, you can watch as the gift shop is temporarily unloaded and the van takes its place. On the front of the vehicle, you can see a logo that simply says company name, but I'm more interested in the van's interior. Taking a look look inside, you can see that there is no driver present, but it is fully modeled inside despite this. The open space in the van is mostly taken up by the MXES, but there are no digital rabbits in sight, at least not yet. The entity will appear behind the van and clip their hands through this rusty machine. Their motions are super stiff and rigid, which is a lot more noticeable in bullet time. They then stick their head through the back of the van, but before they reach the player, they're pulled back inside. The doors slam shut as the entity vanishes, and the van drives off the side of the map and out of bounds. After it unloads, the game's credits will roll once again. Back in the hub, we can now view a character called Jackie through the model viewer, and she's a massive jack-in-the-box straight out of your worst nightmare. This character has bright red pigtails and a speaker in her mouth, and of course, long stretchy arms like you'd expect from a jack-in-the-box. As far as I know at this time, she doesn't serve any further purpose than teasing the model itself for Secret of the Mimic. But with that, that's everything I found hidden behind the scenes in the sister location minigames and Princess Quest, thus concluding the entirety of Help Wanted 2. I hope you enjoyed this game-breaking video, and I'll see all of you really soon. Thanks for watching, and cheers!